Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with Rudy's Common Sense. And today, for the first time, I think, maybe not, I threw away the script. I was going to talk about something else, but I'm so disturbed by what I saw this morning that I have to describe my thoughts to you without all that much preparation, although I did some reading of things that lawyers no longer read anymore: the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and believe it or not, the Magna Carta. Because today in the state of New York, the Attorney General of the state of New York has destroyed 800 years of Anglo-American law, trashed it completely, and acted like a tyrant. These are the things that happen in fascist governments. They don't happen in a government that is ruled by law. Today, she appeared with two former assistant U.S. attorneys from the Southern District of New York, where similar practices have been engaged in for the last 5 years, not as egregious, but justified under the insanity of Trump derangement syndrome. Raiding people's homes in the middle of the night, raiding law offices. Only Trump's lawyers get raided, by the way. Getting a client to plead to charges that don't constitute a crime, and leaking constantly saying that they're not leaking, that the evidence, I guess, is being given out by angels somewhere. But they didn't leak at all in the Trump case, except I hardly ever talked to them, and I knew everything about the Trump case because I read it in the newspapers. And I know everything about what they're investigating me for because I read it all in the newspapers, and I'm able to prove that it's all not true. And then when I do, they move on to it. This is like 2.5 years of a investigation in search of a crime. So they've been doing that for quite some time, and the two that Letitia James selected for her fair investigation of Andrew Cuomo were these two who really had ruined their reputations with just completely unconstitutional actions justified by, going after the big bad Donald Trump. Well, that's the kind of thing that ruins the Constitution in our country. When you think somebody is so big and bad, you can override the Constitution. Now, let me explain to you the tremendous damage that was done today by Letitia James. She stood up for an hour and something. She did most of the reading. Her two henchmen participated. And they explained to us in excruciating detail all of these allegations by all of these different women of some form of sexual harassment. Some of it quite serious, if true. Some of it not as serious. Some of it possibly explained by changing culture. And then it was presented as if it were true and proven. And then the remarkable statement that she's not charging him with a crime or a civil wrong. Do you realize? And I hope you do. I hope that 5 years of Democrat trashing of the Constitution, Biden trashing of the Constitution, Hillary Clinton trashing of the Constitution, and that terrible media that censors 80% of what they don't like, which is usually the truth as seen by the other side. Do you realize that doesn't happen in a democracy ruled by law? A prosecutor doesn't get to just expound on what they found and then not prove it in court. In fact, when you don't allege it in court, the ethical rules that I grew up with say that you have to keep your mouth shut because the person doesn't get an adequate chance in a court of law to defend themselves. Do you know how ancient that rule of law is that she destroyed today? How ignorant of history we've become? what damage we're doing to the state of our law and our way of life, that goes back to the Magna Carta in 1215, which was extracted from King John, the younger brother of Richard the Lionheart. Extracted by the barons so that they wouldn't overthrow him. And basically, to put it in modern English, among the many things they made him promise, at the beginning of the Parliament, by the way, and our legislature, they made him promise that people couldn't be punished, they couldn't have their land taken away, they couldn't be disadvantaged without a legal process, without legal process. About 150 years later, it began to be codified, meaning it was made into law by those legislatures, those parliaments that emerged from the Magna Carta, into what now we call due process of law. And then over the centuries, under English law, it became defined, and it's the centerpiece, one of them, that distinguishes us from a dictatorship. Time to take a short break. I accomplished a lot in 2020 exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Thank you for returning. To take away your property, to take away your liberty, to take away your office that you were elected to, or to harm you legally in some way, the charges just can't be read. The evidence just can't be read. You have a right to contest it. You have a right, and then due process becomes, you have a right to be faced by your accusers. Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution. You have a right to a lawyer to challenge it. Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. Gone. Gone. You have a right to trial by jury. Gone. The minute she was finished with this sacrilegious press conference to any person who values the rule of law, all of a sudden, all the usual commentators got on. I wasn't surprised at their reaction. I'm talking about the right and left now. Their reaction was pure hysteria. Let's make it even worse than it is. None of them even paused to think, gee, could this be unfair? Is it possible? Is it possible that anybody here isn't telling the truth? Is it possible that Letitia James has a political motive? Remember, Letitia James got elected to the number 2 position in New York City government with the now worst mayor in the history of New York, Bill de Blasio. And during his inauguration, she stood up and she gave I'd say an obscene speech. She got up and she attacked the former mayor while he was sitting there, Mayor Bloomberg, and laid out what a terrible mayor he was. basically accused him of being a racist. Now, I know Mike Bloomberg. I endorsed him, and there are many people, I think Mike would even accept this, that think I got him elected with my endorsement. And then he went on, and Mike and I disagree. He's now become a Democrat, quite left, quite nanny state, but he was a good mayor. A lot better than the clown we have there now. But you know what she did during the inauguration? She attacked Bloomberg. De Blasio, of course, didn't have the courage because he lacks everything: intellect, courage, ability to avoid certain addictions, got all kinds of problems. So he never defended Bloomberg as he should have if he were a man. And I was a little disappointed that Mike didn't walk out. But it's the first time that I saw Letitia in a different light because she came from my high school. She's an intelligent woman. And then she ran for attorney general in a way that should have, I think, had her disqualified. She had a one-issue campaign. I'm going to get Donald Trump. I don't even think prosecutors in the Old West ran that way. I'm going to get, Joey the three-shooter. You don't run for office of a prosecutor to get one person, particularly if you can't even articulate the crime you're investigating. It's like the Southern District. She started an investigation in search of a crime to get one man. That's called not prosecution, that's called persecution. If we had the discipline to understand when something is being done to our enemy that's unfair, if we don't stand up for it, it's going to get done to us. That was the wisdom of the American left 40 years ago. That was the wisdom of classical American liberalism when the Ku Klux Klan came to demonstrate. The ACLU stood up for their right to demonstrate, even though they despised what they stood for. When the American Nazis wanted to demonstrate, the Jewish Anti-Defamation League stood up for their right, saying if we don't allow them that right, it'll be taken from us. And then I can go back into American history and American constitutional law and quote Supreme Court justices and others. People of wisdom, not people of uncontrolled, fairly uneducated, not knowledgeable about our history, not really serious about our law, who just completely emote based on their self-advantage. That's what Letitia James is. She's a disgrace. What she did today was a disgrace to the professionalism of a prosecutor under American law. She laid out detailed, lurid allegations without giving the person a chance to defend themselves in the proper forum that 800 or 900 years of history has developed so that we get as close to perfection in achieving justice as possible. Hey, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than Letitia James getting on television and doing it for CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and all the rest of them. If that wasn't disappointing enough, after she and her two lackeys participated, I do not understand how these people who were trained in the same office that I was, the Southern District of New York, could possibly have participated in this. I would have walked out if anybody ever asked me to go in front of a camera and tell everybody all the allegations I had developed on Paul Castellano or on a Nazi war criminal. Like I prosecuted real criminals, not like they do now, like real criminals, mafia, murderers, terrorists, Nazis, the biggest people on Wall Street, and lots of politicians, Republican and Democrat. They even prosecuted 70 police officers, and there's nobody that loves the police more than me. So I'm going to be damned if I sit by and watch the legal system that I devoted 50 years of my life fall apart so we can become a socialist country. Because that's what they're doing. They're destroying our legal system And we now have a television commentariat that they're very smart, but they're very lazy and they have no wisdom. Where was the lawyer who stood up after this and said what I just said? Where was the lawyer that pointed out the Magna Carta or the English statutes of 150 years later, or the inclusion of due process in the Bill of Rights, or the 14th Amendment, or the opinions of the greatest Supreme Court Justice of the United States, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Louis Brandeis, Felix Frankfurter, defining due process, or the magnificent, inspiring quotation from Robert Bolt's A Man for All Seasons, attributed to Thomas More, St. Thomas More, speaking to his rather silly, emotive nephew who wanted him to attack the king and attack the laws. And I'm going to paraphrase very poorly, but what he said was, England is surrounded by laws, just like its trees. And if someone blows a big wind and knocks those trees down, and he looked at his son-in-law and he said, Roper, you're just the kind of man to do that, out of his wild and uncontrolled emotions and hatreds. Then, when there are no trees standing and there are no laws standing, who's going to protect me against the devil or you? We've given away that wisdom. We gave away that wisdom when we allowed Trump to be prosecuted, pursued, not prosecuted, but impeached, pursued with every legal procedure that we cherish removed and trashed. We'll be back in just a minute. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home. A $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Let's continue. I feel most strongly about the invasion of his attorney-client privilege since my law office was ransacked. And I prosecuted much more dangerous people than these silly prosecutors do today. And I never invaded a law office and never would have thought doing that, no matter how terrible the criminal is, because the principle was more important than the criminal. We've lost that. And when we lose that, we lose a little bit and a lot of the protection of living in a country of laws. You know, democracy is not our protection. The Soviet Union was a democracy. Adolf Hitler was elected. People who say democracy is our protection should read the founding fathers who were afraid of runaway democracy. They could foresee a Hitler. They could foresee a Stalin. Putin's elected with 98% of the vote. That's a democracy. What protects us is the Constitution of the United States. It's the Bill of Rights. It's the rights that come to us if you're a religious person from God, if you're not from nature. Our rights are not granted to us by our government. Our government's not strong enough to give us rights. We're stronger than the government. Our rights belong to us. As a matter of right, and no one can take them from us except a dictator or a potentate. So what happened today, I don't know if Andrew Cuomo did all, some or none of what he's alleged to do. I have my own personal view of it. And it's going to remain that way because of the atmosphere of unfairness in which that would be reported. I do know that whatever he did, what she did today does more lasting damage. Not to individual people. If he did any of that, it was a terrible thing to do to individual people. And to them, they have my sympathy, my best wishes, and I hope if he did it, he's punished as strong as he should be. No stronger and no less because of his position in life. But whether he did it or he didn't do it, which we don't know, we do know one thing. She has now followed in a long line of people who are destroying our Constitution, and no one is noting it. We're becoming insensitive to it. Now, let me give you a piece of good news. Now, I didn't watch all the television stations, so excuse me, and if you are a lawyer who's done this, please let me know, and I'll mention your name. And I'll put you in my club, if you want to be there, of the remaining good lawyers, honest lawyers, ones who still see it as a profession, and ones who are willing to fight like hell for their clients and not be worried about being persecuted. Because that's what I was taught. One lawyer did come forward after an hour and a half. His name is Andrew McCarthy. You probably have seen him on Fox. I will disclose to you that I hired him as a paralegal. He went on to law school. He became a lawyer. He participated in one of the longest trials in American history, the Pizza Connection case. They don't try cases like this anymore. He became a very fine terrorism prosecutor. And now he basically is a scholar in residence. He writes a lot, speaks a lot, and very often gives opinions on Fox, which are opinions that I sometimes agree with and sometimes I very strongly disagree with. But he was the first one that slowed down after a long group of lawyers, all of whom should go back to law school. And he said, this is just wrong. I never did this. Never did it because I trained him. He never did it because I was trained. He knows if he ever did it, he'd have been fired. I never got up and outlined all the evidence against somebody we weren't going to try. Where does that come from? How does that not violate one of our most basic rights? Forget due process. I don't know how you can forget it. It's 800, 900 years old, but forget it for a minute. How about we forget even being lawyers? Why don't we just talk about fairness, right? Somebody gets an hour and a half on television and can say 18 scurrilous things about you. Just say it. And what, just because you get up there and you're going to deny it, you're going to be able to deal with it? People will believe it. That's why we have a trial. That's why they just can't say it. That's why they have to call witnesses. That's why in the wisdom of our forebears who had wisdom, which is why we were such a great country, people just can't make charges about you. They have to confront you. That isn't something Giuliani just made up. That's a sacred constitutional right in the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution. It's called the right of confrontation, which Trump was denied for 3 years by the fascist Democrats like Swalwell and Shifty, who held secret proceedings. And you, the press, let them get away with that. Now you see, it's coming back on one of you Democrats. I told you it'd happen. It's going to happen a lot more often if you don't stop it. It's more than just a saying. People are entitled to the presumption of innocence. It may sound very strange when you know that somebody's guilty. You know they're guilty. But the world doesn't. Sometimes you who say they're guilty may be lying. Did you know that people lie? Did you know that? Did you know that people with motives, with incredible designs on power, lie even more? And did you think that possibly when you look at a Letitia James, who got up at an inauguration and for purely political purposes and to get attention for herself, trashed a perfectly fine mayor of New York to his face? Do you think that someone who runs for attorney general and they're going to be the persecutor of one person, elect me because I'll get Donald Trump? I don't care if it was Donald Trump or Mickey Mouse. That person should never have been elected by the unbelievably weak-minded voters of New York who don't know what's good for them because you've been brainwashed as Democrats. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a liberal, a conservative, or a communist. Somebody gets up and says, I want to be the attorney general because I want to prosecute Robert J. Smith. You throw them out. You say that person doesn't understand what it means to be a prosecutor. They want to be a persecutor. I didn't become United States Attorney in the Southern District of New York because I wanted to prosecute a particular person. I became the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York because I wanted to fairly, equitably apply the law and without going beyond the law, protect the people of New York. And when I became mayor, it was the same thing. And you sure as hell needed me to protect the city of New York then. Because I took over with 2,000 murders a year, and I left you with 500. And I left behind the safest large city in America, and Michael Bloomberg made it safer. And this woman went and attacked him. Among other things, stupid. A stupid person. And obviously, someone whose political motivations overwhelm good judgment. And then to run, to go after one candidate, overwhelm decency. And now has completely overwhelmed not just the Constitution, but the basic laws of America and England and decency. We'll be back shortly. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to MyPillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's MyPillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Thank you for coming back. I don't agree with Andrew Cuomo a lot, but boy, does she want to be governor. It's dripping like blood from her fingers. You don't let somebody become governor and destroy all those trees that surround us and protect us. They're not protecting me much now. And I've told you, they do it to me, they can do it to you. They do it to me, they can do it to Cuomo. I don't know if he's innocent or guilty. I'm innocent completely, which is a heck of a frustration. One of the reasons I defended Trump the way I did was I was with him all during the campaign. I know the charges of Russian collusion were totally made up. I know the people who made them up. None of them have been prosecuted. None of them have had their homes invaded. And I have sitting 2 rooms from me Hunter Biden's hard drive. I can show you on that hard drive how the President of the United States has been a 30-year crook, and he's sitting in the White House. And he whacked up over $30 million with his son. And you want to know how I can tell you that? Because I can pull out just one text from his son that reads as follows. For the last 30 years, I've paid all the expenses of this family and still had to give Pops 50% of my income. That's Hunter Biden, January 3rd, 2018, to his daughter. I didn't say that. Hunter Biden said it. And if the hard drive hadn't been censored by the corrupt Democrat media, all the American people would have gotten to see it, not just the ones who read the New York Post. And even the few who have since found out about it, 10% of them say they wouldn't have voted for him, which means we would not have had this mentally impaired president. And we wouldn't be going through this evisceration of our Constitution. Please, think for yourself. Think for yourself. Don't let them do this to us. Fight back for our Constitution. Remember who these people are that are so intent on power, and a lot of them greed and are so craven that they're willing to take away thousands of years of legal protection so they can be governor, or Nancy Pelosi can be 102 and still be in the Congress, or Schumer can be 97 and still be in the Congress. I mean, it won't even be fun for Schumer anymore. He won't be able to rush in front of cameras when he's 92. These are pathetic people. They've made themselves pathetic. I knew them when they weren't. They sold their soul. Gosh, maybe we should do a reading of Faust, huh? Offers a lot of wisdom. Reading offers a lot of wisdom. I wish these people would do it. They don't. Remember, you're the guardians of our Constitution. We got an election coming up real soon. We got to rock the hell out of this country. And we rock it back into democracy, a republic, but most importantly, the fair and equal application of the law. Because that, as the patron saint of lawyers said, that's Thomas More, by the way, that's our protection, the law. And when it gets applied unequally and unfairly, we're in a fascist country. We're not going to be there long. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America.